this session. I invite all of you to stay sharp and focused because we'll push to you a lot of details. I'm also obliged from a legal perspective to inform you that we intend to record this session to make it available offline for other participants that were not able to join this session. So please be aware that we record it. We are going to share it afterwards. So take it into account from a privacy perspective. So in the case you are not comfortable with this setup, I thank you at this moment for the intention to join, and you can exit the call, of course. Otherwise, and I can see someone that does not hear me. Can you guys please be kind and confirm, can you hear me or not?
Yes.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, so it seems only Christina from the Commission cannot hear me. So to come back to my very brief introduction, I will share with you, if you allow me 1 second, the agenda. I hope you can see my screen at this moment. So to walk you a bit through the agenda, after my brief introduction, we'll invite the colleagues from the European Commission from DG Connect to make a presentation on the Digital Europe program. The colleagues from the Romanian Research and Innovation and Digitalization Ministry to entertain us with insights on digital innovation hubs, especially with the focus on the Romanian ones. And then before the wrap up and the questions, some practical approach suggestions from the team of the Romanian National Cyber Security Directorate. So that's the way we are going to do. And because I have quite a number of colleagues from my team in the call, I will ask them to take some notes. So Mr. Tiberiu Dumbrava will take the notes and the minutes of this call and will make the minutes available to everyone. Tiberiu, did you hear me? Okay, we'll take it offline. One of the colleagues will talk to him and will make him aware that he's in charge with taking the minutes of this. And thank you so much for your support and availability for this. So without further ado, and hopefully if the colleagues from the Commission are ready, steady to push to us quite a lot of information, I give the microphone to the Commission. I don't know whether it's Christina or Paloma, the ones who will take the floor and will make the presentation. Okay, 1 second. Okay, thank you so much, Christina.
I can hear you now.
We can hear you as well.
So
Thank
I
you so
apologize
much
for the technical
No
problems.
worries.
I came to the office and suddenly nothing was working as it's supposed to.
We are all technology related people, and in the digital world, this is the new normal, having some technical issues. So the floor is yours.
Let me share my presentation, and please, colleagues, let me know if something is wrong with the presentation. I hope you will be able to see it nicely. Okay. I hope you can see it in the presenting mode.
Yes, we can see it.
Thank you so much. Okay, so let's start immediately, since I think I've delayed it with my technical issues quite a lot. So yeah, my name is Christina Carter. I work in DG Connect on the Digital Euro program, on the work programs. And of course, digital is something that has been a clear priority for this commission since the very start. If you remember, in February, von der Leyen's commission has already presented a very ambitious strategy on shaping Europeans' digital future. This has been a bit, let's say, disturbed or interrupted, or maybe even actually highlighted by the COVID crisis, when we all suddenly switched to digital much more than we used to be, and our businesses and our personal lives suddenly depended much more on our connectivity and on our skills as well. This, of course, is all to say that digital transition is something that we do not take lightly. Together with the green is one of the top 2 priorities. And it's not only about, you know, empowering businesses or building new grids. It's also about empowering people. It's about making our businesses resilient and competitive. And it's also not to forget about public administration, because we really want to equip public administration as well with the new generation of technologies, so that everybody can make use of it. And these efforts are not just limited to research and development, as we all know that we used to have, we still have Horizon Euro program that is all about research and development, but now we were thinking, okay, we need really something strong also to support deployment and really building key digital infrastructure to innovate, to strengthen the businesses, and we needed a program that will really be about building capacities and deployment. So this is where the Digital Euro program comes in. This is the recap of the main objective that you see now. Overall, I would say I've added a little bit on the side. It's all about being more strategically autonomous. So really putting our efforts in building European digital sovereignty, which of course is not about protectionism or closing Europe down, just to make a note of this, but it's really a positive agenda that is about putting forward our own European rules and ensuring our transformation in line with our values. As we all know, we are increasingly dependent on other regions for some key digital capacities, such as processors, memories, computing systems, data infrastructure, web platforms as well. So we really need to kind of find a way to lower these dependencies, so that we are not just looking at foreign companies and foreign countries, but we really strengthen our own capacities in digital technologies, in critical ones, and also while we are at this, we also safeguard our democratic values, and of course we bolster our competitiveness. So let's speak about Digital Euro program. So this is how much money we have for now. This is according to our regulation. This is regulation from May 2021, when the Parliament approved this. We are speaking about 2.2 billion euros for supercomputing. This is the largest chunk of money. Then we have 2.1 billion for artificial intelligence. We have 1.7 billion for cybersecurity, 580 million for advanced digital skills, and 1.1 billion for ensuring wide use of digital technologies across the economy and society. And in this really wide category, we have things like Destination Earth, like blockchain, like the digital wallet, public administration, different kind of public administration, like smart communities, and all of this falls under the ensuring use wide of technologies. What is important for you maybe to understand is how we structured the program, because it's not about blah blahing. This is really very, I would say, technical information, but it really serves everybody who wants to apply or use the program to more easily find where the areas of your interest are, because we are speaking about a large program, and to make things more complicated, it's divided into several different work programs. So on this slide, you see that we have high performance computing, artificial intelligence, cybersecurity, and advanced digital skills. These are what we call specific objectives. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. And we also have across all of these objectives, we have the deployment and European Digital Innovation Hubs. That is, this falls under a specific work program. So just to, it looks a bit complicated. Maybe I should have made the arrows more easy to follow. But basically what this means, we have several work programs. We have something that we call main work program that will cover the artificial intelligence, advanced digital skills, and high impact deployments. And then we have the deployment across the economy and society. And then we have a special work program for high performance computing. We have a special work program for cybersecurity. And we have a special work program for European Digital Innovation Hubs. And yeah, maybe just also to use this slide to say a little bit more about what the goals are in a bit more specific details. If I have time, I have. So for supercomputing, this is, as I said, in a specific work program, but what the goal here was, it was really to build up and strengthen the supercomputing and data processing capabilities of the EU, which means practically we want to buy. So it's a bit of spending, which is why it's so expensive. We want to buy world-class exascale supercomputers by 2022-2023, and then also reinforce post-exascale capabilities in 2026-2027. We also want to broaden the use of supercomputing in the, so that it's not just used by academia, but we also want to make sure that businesses, health, and the public administration in the areas such as health, environment, security can also have access to high-performance computing. When we talk about artificial intelligence, this is something that we actually, with this we cover not only artificial intelligence, we also cover setting up European data spaces, which is important because we want to facilitate access and storage of large data sets, and so that European data is more easily accessible and exchangeable. This also entails building cloud infrastructure as well. Also here, what we have, and it's a large chunk of our work program, is basically building testing and experimentation facilities. This for artificial intelligence, and this is something that will be done across many different sectors, for example, health and mobility in member states. This will also, we hope, help the use of artificial intelligence in these areas as well. Then we have cybersecurity. It's 1.7 billion to strengthen cybersecurity coordination between the member states, of course, which is a very important goal, but also to boost the capabilities of cybersecurity for member states. One thing that I have to mention here, that cybersecurity as a specific objective also entails our quantum goals. However, everything related to quantum and quantum communication infrastructure, this you can find in main work program. We call it the main work program, but it's not more important than the others. It's just because it it encompasses these different specific objectives. So therefore, I call it main. So in this main work program, this is where the topic of building quantum communication infrastructure is. Everything else is related to cybersecurity is in cybersecurity work program. And then, of course, wide use of, let's not forget digital skills. Digital skills means that we are going to support the design and delivery of specialized programs and traineeships for future experts in key capacities. So that means really, I mean, we know that Europe is really lacking, we lack experts, and the businesses are saying we cannot find the experts that we need. We want to hire them, but there are not enough people that are skilled in, but we are talking about really high level skills in these areas. So we really want to make sure that we have more experts in areas such as AI, cybersecurity, quantum, and HPC. And we also want to upscale the existing workforce. So all of this will be encompassed by these specific objectives of advanced digital skills. And in the end, as I said, this very broad category of ensuring wide use of digital technologies across the sector and society, this is also part of the main work program. And we are speaking about supporting deployment of technology in public areas such as health, Green Deal, smart communities, cultural sector, and also, of course, European Digital Innovation Hubs, which is a special work program. And we really aim, and I saw that we will be speaking about the hubs a bit later, but really the aim is to have a hub in every region, because really we want to help companies to benefit from digital opportunities. And for this, you really need people on the ground who know the local environment and who speak the language, and who speak to local businesses, and then really help them out. I mentioned at the very beginning that, of course, Digital Europe is a new program, but we really wanted to emphasize that it's complementary to the other programs that we already have, and that also invest in digital. So Digital Europe is not the only one, because of course we have Horizon Europe that also supports research and innovation. For us, CEF is very important as well, Connecting Europe Facility, because this is where we are seeing a lot of investments in broadband and 5G rollout. Then we also have a Creative Europe program that supports the media, and we have health, which also touches upon the digital, because of course we have telemedicine, we have all sorts of different digital agenda here. And then, of course, we have national, regionals, and local efforts, where we have programs such as cohesion funds, we have agricultural funds, RRF, and we have InvestEU as a financial instrument. And digital, really, we wanted to make sure that it can go together with all of these programs. We are searching for synergies here. It's not about choosing one or another. Most actions foreseen in the program, they require co-investments from the public and private sectors. So the modes of these co-investments are described in the relevant parts of the Digital Europe work programs, but several actions relate to cross-border or multi-country projects, as foreseen in the RRF. And additional, of course, in addition to RRF, several other programs such as will also contribute to these multi-country projects. So you see, there's a lot of different modes where these programs will intersect and interact to each other. My colleague, who is an expert on the co-funding, unfortunately couldn't be with us today because he will be held in the council meeting, the French presidency. But he did give me several slides, so I will try to touch upon this. And if you have more questions on this area of how the program works with other programs, I can take those questions and we can get back to you. But of course, digital has some specific features that are different. So Paloma later, my colleague, when she talks about the specificities, sorry, it's 9:40 here still. She will speak about how the costs and grants will work, but just for now to say that this is not exactly the same to Horizon Europe. We also, the difference is, as well as the digital focuses on delivery of actual results. So it will make use of most recent research results, but it will not support research, but as I said before, deployment. So I mentioned the acquisition of HPC machines, but also sectorial data spaces and setting them up, like, for example, data spaces from manufacturing, data space for tourism, and so on. Then we have something that I mentioned as well, building and reinforcing testing and experimentation facilities for the AI. We have set up and delivery of master courses. We have set set up interoperability, operations, and maintenance of number of services in the area of e-government. So you see, very, very specific. All the details and information can be found in the call text and as well in the work programs, and we can share these links with you, also separately. Also, digital has some specific restrictions. This is not interesting to you because, of course, we are all members of the European Union. But just for you to know, we do restrict some participation of entities that are not from the EU or EEA countries. These restrictions are specified in the work program and its annexes, and mostly when we speak about these exclusions, we are speaking about the cybersecurity work program. For this other specific objectives, such as AI, there are some exceptions, but then it's mostly basically the participation there is conditional. So this is just to mention to you so that you are also aware. And so overall planning, we have surpassed many steps already. We are now in the first calls, so they opened on the 17th of November last year, and the second call will open in February 22nd, I believe, but this is just to happen. And then third calls will open indicatively in Q3 2022, but it's too early to know the precise date, so better not to speak still about it, because these things take and also I have to say the planning was quite difficult because as I said, the digital is a new program. As such, it required a lot of consulting with different stakeholders, with member states, with different services, so it took a bit of time to get the ball rolling. As I said, the difficulty in some way for us it's more easier because there are reasons why we have 4 work programs, but on the other hand, I understand that for potential beneficiaries it's a bit headache inducing. But just to recap what I already said, so there are 4 work programs, 1 for HPC, 1 for cybersecurity, 1 for digital innovation hubs, and as I said, the so-called main work program that is managed by Connect. So I will also provide later on in the chat the link to the website that actually has our work programs, the ones that are under that Connect takes care of. We already have, and they are already published. And so this is maybe just in summary. You can have a look at this or take a screenshot. Just to understand, so where these different objectives go in terms of they are a part of the main work program or are they independent, who are they governed by, and when we can expect them. As I said, the main thing for you to know is where to find the information. So other than work program, you will find it all in the call text, and Paloma in just a few minutes, she will explain everything about this. Yeah. I will also copy paste these links into the chat so that you have it all. As I said, my colleague couldn't be here to talk about the combination of funding, but I will go through his couple of slides the best I can very shortly. The common principle here is to prohibit double funding of the same cost, and to also prohibit funding beyond 100% of eligible cost, which I think is something that is very intuitive, I would say. But it also, our goal is to promote cumulative and complementary funding. So as I said, really our goal is to develop synergies with other funds, not to make beneficiaries choose. If they have a project that can be funded by several different strands, they don't need to just go for one. They can really think about how to make the funding complementary to each other. Yeah, so reform and investment projects, they may receive support from other union programs, except the cover mandatory national co-financing under these other programs, and on the condition that the same costs, of course, are not covered twice. This, I say, is very intuitive, very to be expected. Digital Euro program regulation enables a combination of funds, including to joint funding of actions. So really, that really means, just to underline, that funding of the same actions from the RRF and the Digital Europe is possible. So the condition is that this funding then needs to be justified in the light of relevant provisions applying to both programs. And of course, we need to ensure that double funding. This appropriate coordination is therefore needed. I'm almost out of time, so I won't go too deep into this, because also Paloma will touch upon some of the provisions about funding, but I think this is the most important slide for you to be aware. So for the applicants that want to apply for grants from different programs, you need to know that, one, you need to apply for funding in the different funding programs for an activity according to the rules and requirements of each program. So it's also, I would say, kind of self-evident. Then, of course, one needs to declare in the proposal of the directly managed fund the use of the other EU funds for the actions and explain and justify. So we need to be aware of the other funding strands. Then, of course, sign the grants, including the synergy grant provision. And of course, follow the rules for reporting for each funding program accordingly, because they might be different. And additionally, and this is only for shared management programs, that must first declare the expenditures to the managing authority if the managing authority is involved. Of course, the last is insert the cost into the system for directly managed funds in the usual way. So I would say we thought that it's going to be complicated, but really, if you just follow the rules of each program, it should be perfectly fine. So yeah, I'm just on time. Thank you very much. In case you have any questions, as I said, I can reply later on. And also, if you have some specific questions that I do not normally deal with, I can take these as well and then run it by my colleagues, and we can back to you through the organizers as well. So. Hello.
Hi. So I was muted. I don't know if I'm taking over from here.
Yes.
I'm gonna share my presentation as well. My name is Paloma Perez Moreno. I work as a legal officer. My unit is specialized in the implementation, so I'm dealing with implementation of the Digital Europe program. And I will present today some points. I hope the presentation does not become too heavy. Okay, let me know if you can see everything correctly. I hope it works. Okay, so I'm going to start my presentation with the two key documents of the Digital Europe program, apart, of course, from the regulation. You are familiar already with the work program, which is the document that basically includes the information about what topics are going to be launched in the next 2 years. But together with the work program, there is a very important document that we call document. And Christina has already mentioned it in her presentation. Why this document is important? It complements the work program. Differently than Horizon, that includes most of the information in the work program, in digital, we have all information related to implementation in the call document. So what we say is that the call document complements the work program. It's necessary to understand how the calls are going to be implemented. It provides guidance on important aspects of the topics in a call. And for each topic, we have specific information that cannot be found in the work program. Like, for example, what are the targeted stakeholders, or if there are a specific condition that this topic needs to follow. What is the information that we are providing in this call document? Well, we are giving details on what are the admissibility and eligibility rules. And I will come back to this a bit later, because in some cases we have a specific eligibility criteria, which if you don't follow, you might not be allowed to participate. We will have information for applicants on financial and operational capacity, exclusion criteria, information about how the evaluation procedure will be carried out, different information about guarantees, milestone deliverables. If we have financial support to third parties plan, are there any specific conditions for those? What are the mandatory annexes that need to be presented with the proposal? What are the different type of actions that we are planning to implement, and other relevant legal provisions. So our advice is to read very well this document, because each topic might be different from the other. So you will find all the relevant information about the call in here. Now I will go a bit on the program structure, how the program is managed and implemented. So as Christina already mentioned, we have 5 different specific objectives, which are managed slightly differently. For example, HPC is going to be implemented or managed by the HPC joint undertaking, while AI is a mix between the Commission and the new executive agency, HADEA. Cybersecurity will mainly be implemented by the new Cybersecurity Competence Center, which is a new EU body that will be created to implement this specific objective. Skills will be done mainly by the executive agency, while deployment will be a mix between Commission and agency. Here I want to explain you what are the different type of actions for the Digital Europe program. This is a bit an equivalent of the RIANIA actions for Horizon. Something to mention for this program is that the majority of the program will be co-financed, meaning that the funding rate for most of the actions will be at 50%. This is the main purpose of the program, is to co-invest with the member states. As you can see, we have 2 different big type of actions, let's say, grants and procurement. And the Digital Europe program will focus a lot on procurement and will invest a big part of the budget on that type of action. And on procurement, we have 2 different types. The single entity procurement, which is the normal procurement, it's financed 100% by the Commission. And then we have the joint procurement, which is when Commission on the joint undertaking decides to procure jointly with another body, and the percentage of funding will be distributed between the 2 or 3 or several bodies. On the left side, you see the grants, and here we have different types. On one hand, we have what we call grants for procurement. This specific type of action is meant to cover projects that will focus on procuring, meaning that the beneficiaries will have to use the majority of the budget on procurement activities. The funding rate will be 50%. And as you can see, there are 2 different grants for procurement, grants for procurement and grants for procurement of advanced capacities. And this is because the second one has additional requirements included in the call document and also in the grant agreement. Then we have simple grants. This is the basic, let's say, action under digital. It's financed 50%. Then we have grants for financial support to third parties. And here, similar to what happens with grants for procurement, the main focus of the action is to provide financial support to third parties, or what is commonly known as cascading grants. So in this case, the beneficiaries will have to use the majority of the budget into doing financial support to third parties. Then we have the Sme Super Action, and this is the only action that has 2 different funding rates depending on the entity. All entities will be financed at 50%, minus SMEs, which will get 75. And finally, we have coordination and support actions. These are financed 100% and are similar to those in Horizon and are meant to cover coordination activities and support activities. Now, who can participate? Now that we know what are the type of actions, which are the entities that can participate in this action. So firstly, in order to be eligible, the participants must be legal entities. This means a public or private body that has been created under national or union law. They have to also be established in an EU member state or an eligible non-EU country. This terminology is a bit of a novelty. An eligible non-EU country can be an associated country, for example. But because of the different restrictions that I will mention in a bit, we might have the countries that are allowed to participate and will become eligible for a specific topic, for example. The call document, and that's why I mentioned that this document is very important, will also specify if there are any additional conditions on participation or if there are restrictions. What are the different ways to participate? Once you are eligible, you want to form a consortium. What are the different roles in this consortium? So first we have the beneficiaries. These are the main participants. Let's say they signed the grant agreement and they have all rights and all obligations that are in the legal text. Then we have the affiliated entities, which are very, very similar to the old linked third parties. These entities have to have a link with the beneficiary, legal or financial. They perform tasks, they do work in the action, and they can declare cost. Then we have the associated partners, which are in a way similar to the old beneficiaries not receiving EU funds. They participate in the action, they perform some tasks, but they do not declare cost. They do not receive funding. Then we have the recipients of financial support. When an action has cascading grants, well, there are also these third parties that will receive support from the beneficiaries. Then we have the third parties giving in kind, and in this case, these are third parties that will provide some support, some in-kind support to the beneficiaries or the affiliated entities or to the action in general. This, they do not work, and these costs are not, they cannot declare cost either. And then finally, we have the subcontractors. They perform tasks, but they are not linked to the action per se. They simply invoice the beneficiaries, and then the beneficiaries can take the invoice and declare it for reimbursement. What are the restrictions that I mentioned before? So not all entities will be eligible, and in the new MFF we have some new restrictions that are related to participation, and I'm going to mention the two most important for DEP. One is the restrictions that we can find under Article 12.56, which is based on security. What we are doing with the restriction is to limit the participation in a topic to entities that are established in a member state, which is usually a normal eligibility criteria, but that are also controlled by an EU member state or EU member state legal entity. When we have this restriction, we have to include it in the work program. So for the current work program, you can already see the costs that are going to be restricted. And whenever we activate this restriction, we need a security justification. What is the difference between the 12.56? 12.5 applies to cybersecurity topics. There are no conditions, meaning if you're an entity that is controlled, you will not be allowed to participate unless it's specified differently in the work program, but I think this only happens for a couple of topics, so it's very, very exceptional. And then for Article 12.6, which applies to HPC and AI, what we are seeing here is you are an entity that is controlled, and in principle, you cannot participate. But if you comply with some conditions that we have included in the work program and you present some guarantees, you might be allowed to participate. So what happened with these countries that are considered, or these entities that are coming from third countries? In principle, entities from third countries that are not associated to a program cannot participate unless their participation is needed for the action, unless it's necessary. They will, in case they participate, in principle, they will not be financed, they will not receive funding unless they were program specified differently. Here we have the second restriction. It's the one that we call restriction based on strategic autonomy. And here, what we are saying is we are going to restrict based on the place of establishment. We don't care about control. But what we do here is we might decide to only allow entities established in a member state on the topic, or entities established in a member state in an associated country, or include member states and a third country for a specific topic. So you will have all this information in the call document. That's why I mentioned that it's important to check in case your topic has a restriction, because it might not affect your entity, but the consortium might have an entity which could fall under these restrictions. Then on evaluation of proposals, I just wanted to make a small remark. We have 3 different award criteria for the Digital Europe program. These award criteria are, let's say, the requirements under we are going to assess a proposal. We are going to score a proposal based on these 3 points. And these 3 points have some sub-criteria. What I want to explain here is that in the call document, you will see that some sub-criteria have a slight small asterisk. This is because, and I'm going to put relevance as an example, you see that the 2 last points, reinforcement of the Union's digital technology supply chain and resilience to financial obstacles, have a little asterisk at the end. This is because in some cases, these sub-criteria will or will not be taken into account for the assessment, so for the evaluation. You will find this information in the call document. Under each topic, you will have a topic condition that will explain if this criteria applies to your topic or not. That's why it's important to go through them. In implementation, the 3 apply. And in impact, again, we have the environmental sustainability, which might or might not apply for your topic. So it's important to take a look. Finally, I want to explain a bit about the model grant agreement. First, in case you are not familiar with the term, the grant agreement, it's a contractual document. It's a legal document that is signed between the granting authority, which is either the commission or an executive agency or a joint undertaking, and the beneficiaries. Is the contract, basically. And this document defines, on one hand, your rights, the rights of the beneficiaries, which are, among others, the right to receive EU funding, under, of course, on terms and conditions, the rights to own the results produced in the action, although, and here I'm going to make a small remark, these results, even though you are going to own the results, they might be subject to some restrictions on what you can do with them in terms of licensing, for example, if the topic is under an EU restricted call, if the topic is under a 12.5, 12.6 restricted call. And then, of course, you have the right to ask for amendments. If something changed during the action, you can always ask for a change in the contract as well. But this document not only includes rights, it also includes some obligations, like the obligation to implement the project, to submit the adequate reports, to display the EU emblem. And we also have information about the budget, about how much money you can get. And overall, the granting authority can never pay more than the maximum amount that it's set in the document, but it might pay less. And this might happen because at the beginning we estimate some costs, and at the end of the action might be lower. So once the action is ending, the final payment might be lower than the budget stated at the beginning because the final costs are a bit less. But it's new because I'm sure some of you are already familiar with the model grant agreement if you have been participating in Horizon 2020 calls. So for this new MFF, the entire grant agreement is digital, it's fully electronic. But what is new? For this new next MFF, well, for the current MFF, we have what we call a corporate structure. This means that you will find a very similar model grant agreement for most of the programs. Like, for example, Horizon Europe, Digital Europe, CEF. All these programs will have a very, very, very similar document. This is because the main part, the part where we have the articles and some annexes, is the same for all the programs. There will be some small deviations in some articles if the regulation requires so. For example, in the case of digital, we have a different funding rate in the Sme Super Action that says SMEs will get 75 and the others will get 50. That specificity will be included in the main text of the model grant agreement, but for the rest, you will find the same articles in all the programs. This is also to make everybody more, let's say, to simplify a bit the structure of the document. So you are familiar. Once you have signed a document, a grant agreement with Horizon, you will find a very similar one on digital. Then if there is a corporate part, where do we include the specificities of the program? Well, these are included in what we call the Annex 5, which is a non-corporate part. All the programs have this Annex 5 in which they include all this information that is specific for the program. In the case of digital, let's say one of the most important parts is the IPR, and it's linked to the restrictions. So we have, as I mentioned, these restrictions under 12.5, 12.6. And even if you can't participate because you are an EU-established, EU-controlled entity, there are some obligations or requirements that will be included in the work program in relation to this restriction. And it's good that you take a look because you are bounded by the signature of this document. And it's in relation to the IPR, or for example, which type of entities can participate in terms not only beneficiaries, but also subcontractors or associated partners. But there are also other rules that are included in Annex 5, like specific rules on financial support to third parties or grants for procurement. Here you can see a bit what is the corporate structure. So at the beginning, you will have the data sheet with all the information about your grant, who are the participants, the budget, what are the reporting period, the payment period, consequences of non-compliance. You will have an overview of the agreement. And then you have the part on articles, which is, as I mentioned, common for most of the programs. And finally, you will have Annex 5, as I mentioned, which is different from one program to the other. What are the eligible costs? Well, again, the basic eligible cost, let's say, will be the same for all programs. You will have the same in Horizon, Digital, or CEF. But if the program has a different or has a specific cost, it will be reflected here. So I'm sure if you are familiar with Horizon 2020, you will find familiar costs in here as well. Eligible costs are personal costs, subcontracting costs, purchase cost. You have other cost categories with financial support to third parties, and then you have indirect costs. The only cost that is specific for digital, it's PAC procurement cost. And this is because we have this specific action that I was mentioning, grants for procurement of advanced capacities, in which the majority of the budget will have to be dedicated to procurement and will have to fall under this category that we call PAC procurement costs. And finally, we have what we call project monitoring, and it's because during the life cycle of the project, the action has to be monitored regularly. And this monitoring, this reporting, together with the payments, are fixed in the grant agreement. And I'm talking about periods and amounts and months, and you will have all of that in the, as I mentioned here, in the part of the data sheet. You see point 4, it's on reporting, payments, and recoveries. You will have all the information there. And finally, just to mention my last point, it's on experts. Experts, of course, are essential for evaluating the project at the beginning to decide if the project can continue the process or not. But then they are also important on the monitoring of the project during its life cycle. So we are, of course, you can register as an expert. It's open. You just have to go to the funding and tenders portal, and you will have there a little tab on top where you can register as an expert. And here I'm just leaving some useful links because you will have all this information in the Digital Europe website, but also in the Funding and Tenders Opportunities portal. And in this final link, you will have the call documents for all the calls, but you will have also some guidance. Like, for example, there is a specific guidance on the restricted calls that explain a bit better what I've tried to put in a couple of slides, but there is a guidance on that. You will have guidance on different points like ethics. You will have an online manual to understand a bit better some of the points on implementation. And at some point you will have as well the model grant agreement. So you will be able to check the grant agreement before even entering into a call. And with this, I finished my presentation and I hope everything is clear. I know it was a lot of information, but
Thank you so much, Paloma. Paloma is done speaking. Both you and Christina, you did fantastic. So it's a really super great wealth of information and details that you are so kind to share directly with us, with the entire audience. And I'm very sure already your slides and the info you provided, because it was very granular and also very specific. I think a lot of it already answered quite a number of questions. Nevertheless, I expect we may have some questions during this. So now, with your permission, because also my role is to keep a bit the timing and make sure that we keep the momentum and we can save a couple of minutes to have more time for Q&A. I would like to invite our colleague Viorel from the Ministry of Innovation, Digitalization and Research of Romania to take the microphone, to take the floor, and share with us some insights on the digital innovation hubs, because as we saw, these have an instrumental role in the entire setup and maybe interesting actors to be considered, to work with, to engage with as part of this overall effort from all of us to participate and be active in these initiatives, calls and financing mechanism. So Viorel, if you can hear us and if you can take the microphone.
Thank you very much, Dan. In the last, let's say, meetings that I have participated at the European Commission in DG Research on this side, the new trends is not to give the floor to the next speaker, but to give the screen to the next speaker. So thank you very much for giving me the screen.
I will give you the screen and so on. I think you are activated as presenter, so you can just share the screen. It's a small button.
Yeah.
Share content. Control-Shift-E, and okay, here we go. We can see it.
Okay.
Thank you so much. The ground is yours.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Viorel Vulturescu. I'm working for the Ministry of Research, Innovation and Digitalization. I'm, let's say, more familiar with, in terms of European programs, I'm more familiar with the Horizon Europe program, but as our let's say, predecessor mentioned Horizon Europe program several times, I'm very glad to, let's say a few words both on the Digital Europe program, especially on the digital innovation hubs, as well as on the Horizon Europe program, because Digital Europe and Horizon and many other programs are, let's say, brothers and sisters, are let's say, very important instruments in the hand of the European Commission to strengthen the, let's say, not only the cohesion across Europe, but also the technological capacity, sovereignty of Europe in the world. So what I'm going to tell you a few words about the so-called digital innovation hubs. in the acronym is DIHs. So are, let's say, very important instrument to stimulate the uptake of artificial intelligence, high performance computing, and cybersecurity. You've seen these items in the presentation of Christina and Paloma. You've seen that there are three major pillars in the European digital program. To a certain time, it was a presentation, it was a slide on how various programs at the EU level are, let's say, complemented each other. And I'd like to stress that Horizon Europe is dealing with a lower level of the so-called TRL, technological readiness level, to create technologies, while the Digital Europe programming is, let's say, focused on the implementation, on real delivery of technologies in the digital area. So, according to the EU regulation on Digital Europe program, all the member states will have to have the so-called digital innovations hubs, and those entities will have to be supported not only by the Commission, of course, but also the member states and regions, in order to, let's say, increase the public impact of the digital technologies. So, this being said, other EU regulation, what the Digital Innovations Hub will do to help companies in the first instance to improve business production processes, and then to provide innovation services towards the end users. And I'd like to use the word and the item end users, not only companies, because many public administration needs are in strong need of digital solutions. So to provide services like training and skills development required by this period, and of course by the transition towards digital life. The digital innovation hubs, as I said, will support companies and public sector to improve their ability, to improve their, of course, infrastructure, to be not only more familiar, but to have in their own professional life digital technologies, and of course to reduce energy consumption and carbon emissions. And I would like to stress the fact that digital technologies are green, despite the fact that there are some voices saying that, okay, some servers are supporting the overall heating and warming the atmosphere, but no, digital technologies are really green. So, what has to be done? So, as I mentioned, the digital innovation hubs are mentioned in the regulation of the Digital Europe program. They have to, in order to be, let's say, appointed, recognized, acknowledged, they have to pass a national selection process, of course, and then each member state will provide the Commission to with some, let's say, suggestions, some appointees, in order to have this, let's say, European label towards a digital innovation hub. And the European Commission will take into account these nominations, and then we'll have to, let's say, support them according to the rules and regulation in equal manner to all the member states that will have Digital Innovations Hub on their area. Okay, what has been done in order to ensure, of course, the transparency of the process and to properly identify the future digital innovation hubs in Romania? It was organized a selection process by the Authority for Digitalization during the second half of the 2020. So 2 years ago, we can say, because we have just started 2022. And at the end of the selection process, 12 centers were selected, and I would like to let you know that the selection process of digital innovation hubs in Romania was made in compliance with the GRC catalog that is, of course, publicly available, as well as other databases. In the lower part, in the bottom part of this slide, I have also inserted the link to the GRC catalog that has been used, widely used. If one or more of you would like to consult this catalog, feel free to access this link. So what has been submitted, I have inserted here sort of a map, a sort of a graph. In each region in Romania, the Authority for Digitalization have received several proposals covering various areas, and then the selection process started, requiring the candidates to fulfill certain criteria, namely the adequate competencies, the management capacity, the human resources to implement such a project of digital innovation hub, to have the infrastructure, and of course to be able to operate and to have certain, let's say, legal freedom to apply the rules both national and at European level. And of course it is of crucial importance to provide the financial guarantees that again has been assessed by the Authority for Digitalization. As I said at the beginning, 22 proposals were submitted initially, only 18 passed the selection criteria at the beginning, the eligibility criteria, but at the end only 12 were selected as the candidates for the Digital Innovation Hub. And then we're very much looking forward to have the call opened by the Commission in order to have the proposals sent to the Commission for the future to complete the process of appointment of digital innovation hubs in Romania. This being said, I would like to draw your attention about the Horizon Europe framework program. Horizon Europe is the research program of the European Union, is the most important tool in the hands of the European Union in terms of research and innovation. And my, let's say, call today to you was to strongly encourage you to have a look also to the Horizon Europe program, because there are topics that can be of your interest that relates to artificial intelligence, also to support in terms of research to various joint undertaking that again can act in the digital area. And just to tell you about the two topics that we have identified in the work program of Horizon Europe is the one related to artificial intelligence for human empowerment that is planned to be open in June this year, and the deadline is in November. And as my predecessors, my previous speakers said, the rules, the model grant agreements are the same, because during the lifetime of European programs, the Commission, and though in particular those DGs who are managing various programs, trying to unify the rules, both financial and the implementation rules, to facilitate the participation to those programs and to identify the most competitive and the most promising projects. That's why the shift between Horizon Europe and Digital Europe should not be so difficult. Of course, there are differences, as I said, at least in terms of technology readiness level, the so-called TRL, but in terms of implementation, the difference should not be so important. And once you participate in one program, you should be familiar to have a look to other programs. So don't focus exclusively on the Digital Europe program, because there are many other interesting topics also in Horizon program. Please have a broad view on the EU programs. What is expected, what is the scope, is to build the next level of perception, visualization, interaction and collaboration between humans and artificial intelligence systems working together as partners to achieve common goals. So again, while the Digital Europe program is more focused on implementation of new technologies, Horizon Europe is one step ahead, let me call it like this, to create and to develop new technologies, new systems that can be further implemented by other programs like Digital Europe. Another topic that may be of your interest is to participate in the so-called European Network of Artificial Intelligence Excellence Centers to expand the European AI lighthouses. And you see in brackets an acronym, RIA. It's called Research and Innovation Action. So IA doesn't relate to AI, to artificial intelligence, but is a type of, let me call it in Romanian understanding, the type of a contract, the type of action that is to be used to implement those topics. I would like also to stress the fact that the call for this topic will be open in June and end in November. So you have 5 months to get in touch with colleagues, friends, collaborators across the EU, and not only, because I would like to let you know that to the Horizon program, not only the EU member states are eligible, but also the so-called EFTA countries and other associated countries. If you have questions about the eligibility of a certain partner from a certain country, don't hesitate to contact us via the national contact points for the Horizon Europe program. The names of my colleagues are publicly available. If you don't find them, don't hesitate to send me an email or contact me, because I'm here to support you. So the second topic will be open to the proposers within the same time frame, June, November, and I'm sure that you will be able to be part of consortia who submit many project proposals in response to those topics. So just a brief description, what is expected to have in this topic. So scientific progress in artificial intelligence, establishing new pillars of the European artificial intelligence lighthouse, and reinforce and lead a unified European artificial intelligence. You know better than me that artificial intelligence is a very challenging topic that must be treated very carefully, but also will be a powerful tool in the future and will act in many domains. As I mentioned in my previous words, I strongly suggest you and strongly encourage you to have a look also to Horizon program, to have, I would say, a broader view to the EU programs, and of course have a look to funding and tenders portal of the European Commission, because there are many opportunities, and one of them is in the link that I have inserted in my last slide. With this, I would like to thank you very much for your attention. Don't hesitate to contact national contact points of the Horizon Europe program. Don't hesitate to contact me, and all the speakers in this event, because we are here to support you to not only to become more competitive, but to contribute to the European Union competitiveness in this very strong and important area, namely digital area. Thank you very much. I will be here also for Q&A. I also have some questions to colleagues from the European Commission, but I'm very much waiting the Q&A session to debate and to have question and answers. Thank you very much. I pass the screen to you, Dan, to go to the next speaker in the program. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Viorel. Excellent presentation, excellent input, the same level of quality like for Christina and Paloma. Now, without further ado, I would like to invite my colleague Cristian Priboi to entertain you and to share with you the message and the slides from the Romanian National Cyber Security Directorate and a bit of view from us, how we see next steps and our support to you, to the ones interested in this overall context. So, Cristian, can you hear us?
Hello, yes, I think I should be heard quite okay.
Absolutely, we can hear you, so you can take up the screen and the microphone, of course.
Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can see.
So this is our presentation for the Info Day. As many of you, I think all of you by now already know, we are now the National Cyber Security Directorate, and we are set to have a staff of 1,250 employees by 2030. Our mission is to ensure the cybersecurity of the national cyberspace in close collaboration with all competent authorities and relevant actors. We also aim to become an international class institution that firmly positions Romania as a recognized leader in cybersecurity, both regional and worldwide. By far, we have expertise in FP7 EU programs, Connecting Europe facility, and also in Horizon 2020. We have proven hands-on stakeholder project and program management capabilities. We are interested in capability building, threat intelligence, and security architecture. Also, we have great expertise in policy, research, regulation, communication, awareness, and training. And also, one of our roles is of incident response, digital forensics, CSR teams, security operations centers, dissemination, security audit, vulnerability management, and testing. These are just some of the projects that we're currently implementing. I'm not going to go through each one because we will run over our time. We are interested and open for cooperation and collaboration in all kinds of projects in cybersecurity field. With any kind of funding, national, European, international. We're open to join, and we support existing teams and consortiums that are ready to submit grant applications for all kinds of incoming Digital Euro program calls. And we're also open to coach and support teams that would like to prospect opportunities of incoming calls. As next steps, I think that each one of us could enter the portal from the Commission and try to identify what kind of grant best suits their mission and plans for development. And as a short recap for this Info Day, we aimed to raise awareness regarding the Digital Europe program and the available funding. Also, we wanted to provide the information needed for designated candidate European digital innovation hubs to respond to the DIC call. And we want to promote cooperation and collaboration for future projects. Thank you all for listening.
Okay. Thank you so much, Christian. The good news is that we are a bit ahead of the schedule, which is super great. So we can take, if needed, a bit more time for Q&A. So my suggestion is that we can, and this is with the help of the colleagues from the Commission and help of Viorel and the help of my colleagues from the Directorate, I suggest that we try to take one by one some of the questions, most of them or all of them if we can, and try to discuss them very openly here. I will ask the help from my colleagues, especially from Mihai Rotariu, to help us managing a bit the granting the microphone access to the participants, so yes, we can take it. And I see Viorel is the first one that raised the hand and wanted to take the floor. So Viorel, it's yours.
Thank you very much, Dan. I'm, of course, probably the one who will, let's say, break the ice in the Q&A session. Just a quick question to Paloma. I think in the slide 11, it was mentioned, and she said as well, that the funding for the project is not 100%, or at least not for some of them. My question to her is the following. What about the so-called co-financing? Does this amount of money should necessarily come from the participants, or they can apply for various other, let's say, supporting mechanisms that member states can initiate? And in this respect, the subsequent question, if a member state like Romania will define such an instrument to co-finance that organization, will or can be considered as the state aid or not? So to rephrase a little bit, can we, at the level of Ministry of Research and Innovation and Digitalization, can we define instruments to co-fund Romanian participants to Digital Europe program to cover the rest of 50% or 20% and so on and so forth without being considered as a state aid? Thank you very much for your answer.
Well, unfortunately, I'm not an expert on a state aid. It's true that when we mention co-financing, let's say a simple grant, that it's financed 50%, because the only ones that are 100% are the CSA, or National Super Actions. So in principle, the only, and Christina mentioned it in her presentation, and if Christina, please, if you want to intervene as well, do so. The only concern for us, or the only funding that it's not allowed, is that the one that comes from another EU fund, unless it's in a synergy action. So usually when we have synergy actions, we are allowing two different funding programs to finance the same topic, which in principle is not allowed, but it is an exception because it's a synergy. If the action is not a synergy, then we cannot use different EU funds to cover the other, to top up the other 50%. In principle, national funding that it's not linked to EU funding, it's allowed, but in relation to the state aid, I'm afraid I cannot reply on that one.
Thank you very much. That would be, let's say, my question. Thank you very much, Paloma.
But I can, we don't have, my colleague who works on state aid matters is not here these days. She gave birth recently, but I will check who took over from her, and I can elaborate on that question for sure, because we do have. I remember we had discussions on this. So in-house we have an answer for you. So I just need to find it, and then I will send it to you.
Thanks a lot in advance.
We also have a question from Aurelian Gheorghe Ionescu. What is the reason that almost all documents related to the above topics have been issued as regulations?
Could you please repeat the question? Sorry.
Okay. What is the reason that almost all documents related to the above topics have been issued as regulations?
What do you mean as regulations? We only have the Digital Europe regulation as such. The rest are the call documents are not considered regulation. I don't know if that's your question or not.
Okay, I will give the floor to the person who put that question. One second only. Please, Mr. Aurelian, you have the floor. If you can unmute your mic and ask the question.
Hello. Hello, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you fine. Thank you.
Okay, so I am part of the team from Technical University of Cluj-Napoca, working for the national strategy on AI. So my question was related to the fact that it was issued the AI Act, I mean AI as a regulation. Also, I remarked that during the May 2021 have been issued a couple of regulation also, meaning strategic innovation agenda on innovation capacity also was reinforced as regulation. The European Institute for Innovation and Technology also. So I have the sense to do not say that in the white paper on artificial intelligence issued by European Commission on February 2020, it is mentioned that the national initiative could not jeopardize, but put in at some risk the implementation of this goal of European Union to be a relevant actor on the global landscape. So this is, I have the impression that it's a more centralized approach of the European Union, and that's why I mean I said the regulation also. Digital Europe, Horizon Europe are also regulations, meaning that they are directly applicable, not converted in national legislation. This is in detail my question. Thank you very much. And by the way, I highly appreciate all the presentation done here. Very informative and also good ways for action for the member states. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have another raised hand. One sec. Please, Miss Lydia, you can unmute your mic, I think. Just press the mic and you will be unmuted. Until then, we have another question in the chat from Ms. Tatuana. Any state measure like this, in this case, is state aid according with the legal provisions, Emergency Ordinance 77 on 2014? I think this is a question for us Romanians.
Can you repeat it, please?
Yes, any state measure like this, in this case, is state aid according with the legal provisions, Emergency Ordinance 77 on 2014. I don't really know about that law.
Yeah, to be very honest, I'm not very familiar either myself, so I'm not the best to answer on this one. State aid measures from Romania at national level towards this kind of actions and to be this kind of complementary funding mechanism for Digital Europe program.
Okay.
I will, in all honesty, I will take the note on it, Emergency 77. We'll take the question and we'll try to get back offline because myself, I don't have an answer right now.
Okay.
I'm not aware myself either.
Okay, we have we had a question at the beginning of our session from Mr. Dragos Dima. The Digital Europe program cover funding and grants across defense, public order and safety industry. And yes, are there some security restrictions?
So in principle, and here, Christina, you know the word program much better than I do. In principle, we do not cover defense. There is a defense program, which is the EDF, the European Defense Fund. Digital, it's mainly, well, it's civilian use. So there are security related topics like under the cyber security specific objective. But not defense. As for the restriction, yes, this is the ones that I've mentioned related to articles 12. Well, if it's cybersecurity is related to article 12.5, and for AI and HPC is 12.6, and is the point that I mentioned in relation that in order to participate in these topics, on these restricted calls, entities has to be European based, but also European owned, meaning that just to give you an example, an entity or an affiliated entity, a subsidiary of Google, may not be allowed to participate in this type of restricted calls. This is what the restriction it's about. I don't know if that replies to your point.
Maybe I can just also to add to what Paloma said, some, and maybe this is what the question was implying, that there are some actions that cover security, as for example, security law enforcement AI-based pilots, but this is not this is again I wouldn't say defense, but it's to facilitate the use of AI for law enforcement, and this is a topic in the specific objective 5, and it's open for participation. I think the only thing that in terms of security requirements we mentioned there is that it's possible that resulting from the topic there might be some classified background information that needs to be handled precisely in that end, or like you might produce some security sensitive results and then it might be conditional that there are some specific ways how to handle these results later on.
Yes, thank you very much for your answer. Mr. Mihai Daniel Chiroiu now has the mic, if he can unmute. Thank you.
Thanks. So I have one question. Sorry, I was a bit late in the presentation. Maybe that was already answered, but I saw that at the Romanian level, there were, if I recall well, 12 digital innovation hubs selected, but I saw that there are like 8 regions, if I saw it well on the Romanian map. So is there any kind of mapping to this when at the European level, like is there a mandatory top one in the region selected, at least one per region, or is it like I don't know, 12 for the whole Romanian country? So is this something like limited to a region, or is this something like for nationwide or something like that?
Is Dan speaking from the directorate? First, I'm not the best to answer, but I will answer a bit how we did it from the directorate. Okay, at the time we were set Romania, we applied to be part of those hubs. So as I remember at that moment, it was no specific criteria on how to group them by region and so on. I think it happened to be like that. I will look, I took a note on this as well. I think there is some information available on how exactly they were defined, but at Romanian level, I'm not informed yet where to find the information, how they are organized in other countries, for example. But for Romania, I know pretty much where to find it, and I will send you the link for that, because there is described how they were grouped and the entire process on how those hubs were selected.
Yeah, I'm more interested in the European level, if they will kind of consider the grouping, the made of the grouping or not when they select the big, or yeah, if that's the.
I will try to find the info and get back to you, but to be very honest, I don't know myself either.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
In terms of hubs, I can just complement if you want. So for the hubs, what I can say from the European level, the goal here really was to cover all the regions, and including the outermost regions, because it really is the whole idea behind it is to really have an entity that will then offer expertise to the companies, especially SMEs and small companies, and also public sector organizations on the ground. And they should provide services such as testing, before investing, training, skills development, all of this. And for that, yeah, it's really important. That's why I think we went with this regional approach. And in terms of number, I don't think there is, and this, excuse me if I'm wrong, I will have to double check, because as well the hubs is a separate work program, so I will need to just double check to be sure. But there is no limit as to numbers. The goal is really to have a good coverage and to have as many hubs financed already from the first call. And thank you.
Thank you for your answer. We have a question from Miss Lydia Betoye in the chat, who doesn't have an active mic, unfortunately. My question was regarding the co-financing of the EDIHs. Are there any news about the management authority in Romania?
Again, is Dan speaking. Myself, I don't have any news on an additional particular management authority. I think they are already defined, the ones that are dealing with this kind of funds. And for many of the calls under Digital Euro program, I'm not sure there is actively involved any particular management authority in the rollout of the projects under the program.
Okay, thank you. We also have a feedback form in the chat. If you can look at it and complete it, it would help us a lot to become better at this, at organizing such webinars. So thank you in advance for that. At the moment, we don't have any more questions, but if you have, you can raise your hand and we will give you the mic access to address them.
So it
yes,
seems
we have one from Andrei Kelemen. Yes,
okay.
one sec.
Sorry.
One sec.
Okay. Good morning, everybody. I hope I can be heard. My name is Andrei Kelemen. I am representing one of the 12 digital innovation hubs that have been selected by the Romanian government on the short list that can participate in the European call, which, by the way, is open until the 22nd of February. So we are right in the midst of preparing the application for this call. And I hoped that during this seminar, some of the things related especially to the co-financing required for the Digital Innovation Hub's call is somehow cleared by the Romanian government. But I understand that this is still an issue, a pending issue. As it was said previously, especially by the speakers from the European Commission, the Digital Europe program will be partly funding the activity of the digital innovation hubs on regional level, and part of the financing has to come by the EU member state, in our case, obviously, Romania. And it is still not clear for us how this is going to be achieved. The European Commission has also set out very clear conditions under the call document, where the contracts for the European Digital Innovation Hubs will be signed only upon the proper identification of the co-financing from the EU member states. So I think here, and I'm addressing especially the representative of the Ministry for Research, Innovation and Digitalization, Mr. Vulturescu. I think this is something that needs to be tackled as soon as possible. Otherwise, we will have a list of 10 digital innovation hubs from Romania, because that's the maximum that our country is allowed to have, at least on a European level. We will have a list of not functional digital innovation hubs. So I just raised this concern because I see that there is still very little, let's say, progress on this issue. Thank you. It's not a question per se. It's more like an issue that I think should be addressed. And if Mr. Vulturescu and the ministry, of course, are open for discussion, I think we should start the dialogue as soon as possible, because we need to provide details in the application about the co-financing source. Of course, we have the letter of selection from the Romanian government through the digitalization authority from Romania, and that is hopefully sufficient for the moment. It is an obligatory requirement in the call, but the financial issue is still not clear how this will be addressed by the Romanian government. And I'm sure this is not a singular, let's say, situation. I think that other member states have the same, let's say, problem. Some of them found a response in the National Recovery and Resilience programs, but we don't have that here in Romania. So the co-financing, as I said, it's not clear how and who will be distributing it to the digital innovation hubs that will be selected when the call of the European Commission will be finalized.
Thank you, Mr. Andrei. If anyone has any further comments on what was said, please. Yes, we have one. Yeah, please.
Sorry. This is Lydia. I finally have an active microphone, so I would just like to reinforce what Andrei said, because I represent the Digital Innovation Hub from Northeast Romania, and we are in the same situation. We are now writing the application for the European Digital Innovation Hubs, and yes, we would like to know or to ask you to help us on this issue, because the co-financing percentage is already, let's say, there is a co-financing in the Innovation and Digitalization Program in Romania, but we don't know exactly if the management authority is decided or not. And the other half of the co-financing, I mean the 50% of the co-financing should be managed by a management authority here in Romania. So the last information I have is that the digital authority will be the management authority, but I don't know exactly.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Costin. You can hold the question, please. You are muted, or we can hear you. I don't know. No, we can't hear you. I think your mic is muted from Windows or something like that. Or you can pose your question in the chat and we will address it further. I'm sorry, we can still don't hear you. Can you put your question in the chat, please? Okay, so we don't have any more questions. We will take them. We will take all the questions from the chat and we will address them via email. So don't worry about it. We will get your answers quickly. Thank you very much for participating in this informative session. Thank you to the members of the Commission, to the Ministry of Digitalization, and also to my colleagues from Romanian National Cyber Security Directorate for this. Hopefully we will meet each other again online to our next webinars organized on different cybersecurity topics. So thank you once again and have a nice day.